you will get a better understanding as to how the law should be viewed. It demonstrates perfectly that the nature of keeping the law out of love rather than out of this senseless obligation that was being demonstrated by the scribes and Pharisees. Now, let us move forward. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13 says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." So here we are seeing a contrast between good and evil. There is a time for judgment, and it is God who shall bring every single work into judgment. Everything that we do is recorded. Now, here is a very important point. Fear God. If there is anyone we should fear, it is God himself, because God stands up for what is right. If we are not on the right side, he will not stand with us. In essence, by the mere fact of us standing on the wrong side means that we are standing against God. So fear God and keep his commandments. It is he who has made us and not we ourselves. For this is the whole duty of man. This is our duty, to fear God and to keep his commandments. That is the duty of man. So, let's quickly continue. Luke 12 verse 4, "And I say unto you, my friends, be not afraid of them that kill the body, and after that have no more that they can do. But I will forewarn you whom ye shall fear. Fear him which he, after he had killed, had power to cast into hell. Yea, I say unto you, fear him." So, man may kill the body, and you realize that the body is feeble. It is, as it is now, it is destined to die. But we shouldn't fear man. Man can do nothing to us after we go to the grave, but there's one who can. God himself will judge us after this life. He is able to keep us alive, to restore life to our bodies. He is able to put us to death. But not only that, he can cast us into hellfire, which has been a portion for those who cleave to sin. Now, to represent the God we serve, we should keep his commands and fear him. In other words, recognize his authority and show respect. In our society, for example, we know that if you are driving and a police beckons you to stop, you should do so, right? When you do recognize and show respect to the authority given to them, when you do, you recognize and show respect to the authority given to them. If you are caught speeding, you will most likely be ticketed or penalized. So you should fear the law and do what is right. It is as simple as that. And that is the concept of fear. You should give regard, you should give reverence, you should acknowledge the authority that is vested in God, and do not rebel against it. Do not seek to go contrary to that which is established by him. He has made you out of love. The fact that you're alive is a privilege. You must give respect to whom respect is due. Now, as I had promised before, let us quickly go through the 10 Commandments. It says, 10 Commandments of God summarized from Exodus chapter 20. The first 4, love for God. First is, thou shalt have no other gods. The second says, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. That is, you should not have anything to do with idols. No, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Which means, don't swear on the name of God. Right? And if you use his name for anything, make sure you're willing to pay. God is not to be fooled around with. Right? For instance, if you are a child going to school and you made a bet that if you lose, you will pay certain things, and you use your mother or your father's name as security, you are expected to pay. And what you do when you use your mother's or father's name as security is that you put them in debt and you hold them liable to situations that they themselves may not be aware of. So don't use the Lord's name in vain. I would prefer and I would encourage you not to swear. Alright? Secondly, and this was a practice of men of old, where in order to give security, one would swear in the name of God. So do not make that a practice. It is a very serious situation. It is better that you do not swear than after you have sworn you are required to pay. Now, the last of the 4 that pertains to the love of God says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, which was instituted at creation, in celebration of the creation of the world. Now, not a lot of persons accept this, but it is among the 4 that Christ himself says is the greatest. And the second is like unto it, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, we do not disregard any of God's law. James chapter 2 will tell us that if you break one, you break all. Because it is not the commandment that you regard, it is the one who gives the commandment that you regard. So if you break one of his commandments, you disregard him. If you break one of God's commandment, you disregard God himself. So it matters not if you keep 9 commandments and break one. The fact that you break one means you disregard him. Now, the last 6 speak to the love for your neighbor, and it says, honor thy father and thy mother, that your days may be long on the earth, which is a commandment with a promise that if you respect your parents, you will be given a long life on the earth. Well, it might be still short considering this life, but it would be fairly long relative to the average person who lives on this earth. So, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness or in other words, lie. And thou shalt not be covetous, that is, you shouldn't covet what is your neighbor's own. Don't look on them for what they have and wish that you could have what they have. Right? Be satisfied. Do not covet what is your neighbor's. And in fact, covetousness is essentially an underlying concept for, if not all the other commandments, especially for as it relates to loving your neighbor. If you kill, it's because you have coveted something. If you commit adultery, it means you covet the wife of another man. If you steal, it means you covet what someone else's have or someone else has, and you take it. If you tell a lie, let's see how that covetousness would work. You are trying to escape a scenario or situation which requires that you tell the truth. I cannot say specifically. I would not venture to make an analogy for this. But covetousness is a very serious sin, and we should not have anything to do with it. Right? Typically, a lie is something that is built to hide another type of sin. So if you commit adultery, you would want to lie to say that you didn't. If you kill someone, you would probably want to lie to say that you didn't. If you steal something, you would probably want to lie to say that you didn't. And one lie leads to another lie. So if you lie, then you will want to lie to ensure that you are not found to be a liar. So here we see covetousness being at the foundation. Now let us move on. Now, having reached this stage and gone through some of the scriptures, you might have gotten the impression that one could be saved by basically keeping the commandments. That perception is incorrect. Allow me to clarify. Recall in the last section, you were shown that salvation is a gift and cannot be earned. It directly implies that you cannot earn salvation by keeping the commandments of God. This is made clear in the last scripture quoted, which is repeated here for you. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13, which says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." And we'll have touched on this sometime before, especially when I mentioned the case of driving on public roads and keeping the road codes, and whether or not you are penalized for driving not in accordance with the road codes. Now, this makes it clear that it is man's duty. It is man's duty to keep God's commandments. The concept of duty can be best explained in another modern day parable. Let us look at an analogy. A man's duty, what does that mean?